Hey team, welcome back to another incredible episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader Podcast. This is your host, Mark Jewell, and today I am joined by Adam Jason, who is the co-CEO of The Green Coffee Company. Jason, welcome to the show, or Adam, excuse me, Wake, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark.
Excited to have you on, man. Let's talk coffee today. We've
Sounds
had
good.
everything. We've had beef lately. We've had sorghum. We've had corn and soybeans till the cows come home. We've had dairy. We have never had a coffee person in 220 some interviews now. So I'm excited to get into this, man.
Happy to be the first.
Everybody loves, or most everybody is going to have some interest here. So, but you get the same opening question everybody does. What does it mean for you to be intentional?
I think it's all about just knowing where you want to go. Business, life, having a clear direction, and probably take some winding paths to get there, but moving towards goals that you've come up with yourself.
Yeah. Where do you want to go? Clarity is power, as they
Yes,
say. And who can get clear without a good cup of coffee in the morning? Let's be honest.
it certainly helps.
All right. You were a corporate attorney, now
I
turned
was.
coffee entrepreneur. Build a bridge and help us understand how that happened.
Sure. I was a capital markets attorney in my previous life. I worked for two of the large law firms here in the US. I was representing Fortune 500 companies, companies going public on the stock exchanges in the US, boards of directors, what have you. And like many folks in my field, and I think probably corporate America generally, you get to a fork in the road where you decide kind of what's next. In the law firm world, it's, do you want to be a partner at the law firm? Do you want to go in-house at a client of yours? Or do you want to do something totally different and take an entrepreneurial leap, for example? I had a job offer for a new firm in Houston. I was living in Dallas at the time. I had about a month gap between the positions and decided to do some traveling. Had heard good things about Colombia. I wanted to take on the challenge of kind of going someplace and like, all right, how do I actually live somewhere for a month? So I selected Medellin, and kind of by twist of fate, met my now business partner who was starting the coffee company at the time. The initial idea for the business required raising capital from US investors. The initial thesis was consolidate farms, consolidate infrastructures, create a investment vehicle for US investors who were looking for international exposure, commodity exposure, ag exposure. And given my experience in the US, and even the business was getting jump started in Colombia, when you tap into a US investor base, all the same rules and regulations apply, whether you're raising money for a new development in Texas or you're buying coffee farms in Colombia. So my experience was relevant. I ended up partnering up with him, started doing the initial work for the business in my free time once I came back to the US from Colombia from the vacation. And it just felt right eventually about 10 months later to make the jump full time. So I moved to Colombia in January of 2018. I now share my time between Colombia and our US headquarters outside of Chicago, but wife, daughter in Colombia, and really went. I guess that was intentional in a weird way,
Yeah,
unintentionally intentional.
so were you married before you went to Colombia, or did that happen once you got down there?
No, I met my wife a few months into being there.
Okay, amazing.
Yes.
Very cool. Congrats on that.
Well, thank
Okay,
you.
so yeah, so what's been one of the most challenging things that you've had to overcome in this journey of going through the acquisition of capital to the acquiring of coffee farms and building a business and obviously raising now starting a family too. So, but what's been one of the biggest hurdles you've had to overcome?
I think building a business is never easy.
Hmm.
Definitely poses maybe I wouldn't say harder, but unique challenges of trying to do it in a developing or emerging market where we're transacting in a different language. There's definitely cultural differences between Colombia and the US, for example. So navigating those kind of things. One example would be when we initially started the business and we were acquiring a lot of coffee farms. These negotiations and deals, these were not with, a US private equity firm or
Hmm.
Blackstone or whomever. These are with 11 family relatives, cousins. You've been to Colombia, you know the culture there. A lot of these coffee farms are family businesses where everybody has a little piece of the pie, but everybody has an interest. Trying to
Hmm.
get deals done is a different animal than buying a single family home in the US or whatever it might be. So try to learn how to do those pieces that were necessary to the foundations was certainly challenging, and then being viewed with a very skeptical eye when we first came in.
Hmm.
Colombia and the culture, especially in the rural coffee towns where we went, very much the perception that why would somebody foreigners come and invest in our community? They're not used to that.
Mm.
So they were immediately kind of assigned with bad intentions, and you have to build a reputation slowly over time by employing people and doing the right things. So those were challenges that we had to overcome as well. Maybe unique challenges that you wouldn't face in a more developed market.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not like you're just ACHing payroll on Friday all the time in some of these, I mean, I don't even know how you get it done. In some of I mean, there's some very rural parts of Colombia where we almost can't even fathom in America anymore how you do business in some of these places, but it can be very protective, right? They're very protective of each other. The culture is very family oriented. Not that we're not, more so even there. They're very tight within their family, and yeah, it's a very interesting and beautiful culture, the way that they run things down there.
Yes.
So okay, you guys own the U.S. rights to Juan Valdez, which is something I think most people will recognize because we all grew up with the commercial or we saw it on a coffee bag somewhere or something like that. So how did you guys acquire that?
Well, our strategy has been open up as many valuable distribution channels for our coffee as possible. As I mentioned, the business is in Colombia. We're the largest producer there, about 10,000 acres, 10 million coffee trees. So we have a lot of coffee that we have to move. The initial years of the business were really, we were a commodity trading business primarily as we built these downstream channels into the US and Canada. 2025 was really the kickoff for our US based sales. And prior to that was doing some of those things, like you mentioned, getting the rights to the Juan Valdez coffee brand. That brand, if people are aware of it, may not know that it's basically a government owned asset, kind of
Really?
quasi government owned. Yeah, so there's a coffee federation in Colombia that was set up to support all of the small coffee growers in the country. The market is very fragmented. You're not going to find, for example, Nestle and Starbucks and those folks on the ground farming. It's, as you mentioned, a family business. 95% of the farmers own, let's call it less than 5 acres, but it's probably smaller than that. So the government there in Colombia set up a federation that would basically serve as a guaranteed buyer for the coffee of all these small farmers. That federation, it makes money by taking that coffee it buys from the small farmers and reselling it into different markets. Primarily the US is the biggest market for them. In the 1950s and 1959, they created the Juan Valdez brand to elevate the perception of Colombian coffee primarily among US consumers so that they could resell that coffee that they bought at a higher price. They invested $1.4 billion dollars in the brand in the US market. Those commercials you referred to, appearances in movies, Saturday Night Live, everything. The brand still to this day carries about a 28% general market awareness,
Yeah.
very prevalent with the 40 and above audience, and then also the Hispanic audience. So we saw it as a big opportunity. They were not really leveraging all of that market awareness in retail and institutional channels. So
Hmm.
they had cafes and you could go to a Juan Valdez coffee shop, but you couldn't go to the grocery store and buy a bag of Juan Valdez cafe. Really, it wasn't available in hotels or casinos or restaurants, those kind of places. So when we were looking at the opportunity, we said, look, we need distribution for our coffee. We can either build a brand or we can try and tack onto something that we know has already gain some traction. So we licensed the brand from the Coffee Federation that I mentioned. That was in 2024. Then we spent about a year redesigning the packaging, getting our manufacturing set up, everything, and went to market with the brand in the US in 2025. But yeah, we have exclusive rights for retail and institutional channels for the brand in the US and Canada.
Amazing. So now I can buy Juan Valdez coffee here in the US now, and it's coming from the plants that you guys own, the farms that you guys have owned or acquired or done partnerships with.
Exactly. Juan Valdez brand with our coffee in the bags. We're in about 1,000 retail doors since the start of, or since about March of last year. But
Good for you guys.
Target, Harris Teeter, thank you. Hy-Vee, Walgreens will be coming on shelf pretty soon here. That's going to be about another thousand stores. So the presence is growing for sure.
Amazing. Okay, so many questions that I have now. What does 10 million trees look like, man? Like
Mm,
how much coffee can I get?
10,000 acres of 10 million trees spread across 10,000 acres. So you had the number right.
Okay.
But really, I mean, you've been to Colombia. When we talk about acreage, these are really mountainsides.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah, it's
coffee
not a wide
grows.
open field in Illinois. Like we're
No, it's not. And these are, the up and down sides of mountains in the Andean mountains of Colombia.
Yeah. Do they still use burros to get the equipment and get beans up and down? I mean, can we
Of
can we see
course.
a true Juan Valdez scene?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We have several donkeys that are working in our operation.
Yeah, yeah. All well cared for, I'm sure.
Yes.
What Okay, that's cool. So give us some idea, like what's the volume? I mean, do you how do we measure? I mean, everybody knows we do corn in bushels and soybean in bushels and whatever tons, metric tons for shipping, but like how much is that? What's the measurement for coffee? Is it
This
pounds?
year from our farms, and then the coffee that we'll also source from some of the small coffee growers around us, we'll have about 8 million pounds of coffee.
Wow. 8 million pounds. Okay, so you've got my house covered. What about everybody else? Because we go through a lot of
That's a lot of coffee. That's a lot
That's
of
a lot of
coffee.
coffee. That is a lot of, yeah. And so is the goal to continue growing, acquiring more acres, and continue to grow the supply and grow the brand?
We've paused a little bit on the acquisition front.
Hmm.
Basically, one of the challenges we face, something I mentioned before, just the fragmented nature of the estates. We in our acquisition strategy was focused around monocrop towns in the southwest of Colombia where some of these large estates exist. To be honest, we've bought almost all of them. So we're not going to be doing deals for just a couple of acres from some of the smaller families. Where we
Gotcha.
focused our expansion efforts has been on the buying program that we do with those small farmers. So
Hmm.
a lot of them will run basically their entire production pipeline they'll do on their own. They wake up in the morning, they go and pick the coffee from their farms, they bring them down to their mills. The mills are often 50, 60 years old at best, and they do all the work themselves. Where we've found the ability to expand our own production and also help those farmers is stepping in basically at the middle of their workday before they do the processing and buying their coffee from them. That saves us from the big capital investment. We had to get to a certain scale. For example, we couldn't have even gotten the Juan Valdez rights without being the largest producer in the country. But we can scale more quickly by buying the coffee from the farmers around us, and it does support the entire ecosystem in a big way as well as gives us a different element to add to our story as we sell the coffee into the developing markets. So to answer your question, I would say that the biggest expansion of our footprint in Colombia will be through the buying points. And then the downstream is opening up all these distribution opportunities for the Juan Valdez brand, but then also everything we do in food service, casinos, private label opportunities using our own name in the US and Canada.
Because I assume, I think if I understand the coffee business right, we could, if I wanted to make a momentum coffee brand, we could contract with you, buy that from you, have that private labeled, and then either buy it and do our own packaging or have you do it for us or something like that, right?
We could. We try to work with, let's say, kind of brands and things that already have momentum. So we're not looking. There's definitely specialty providers that work with brands that are just kicking off. But yes, I mean, on the private label side, that's also something we would facilitate at the right scale. We got 8 million pounds. We got to move.
We're probably not going to do enough to serve as a partner in that arena to be worth your time. But I understand, like, that's kind of the process, right? If you've got your own brand, you need a supplier where you're going to get your beans, and then you need to go find someone such as yourself who actually has those on the ground relationships. I have a friend who's in Central America who has a family coffee operation, and that's one of the things that they do is the private labeling.
Okay. Yeah, a big opportunity for us is the rise in popularity of private label options in grocery stores. The
Mm,
Walmarts,
sure.
for
Oh,
example, of the world, Kirkland type brands, the in-house names for the actual retailers. That's a big one because they already have big distribution and big volume. That's a lot of the business that we're working to achieve.
very interesting. I actually just bought some Harris Teeter branded organic beans yesterday.
Okay, there you go.
They Yeah, so that makes sense. So they have their own little Harris Teeter brand that's based on, yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Huh. The coffee business is super interesting. I mean, just growing a product just like anything else. Somebody has to grow it, and then there's got to be somebody who helps get that product from where it's grown to the people who need it or want it in this particular case. And it's super fascinating, I think. What's next for the business? Well, first of all, actually, I want to go back to the beginning. So let's talk about the entrepreneurial journey a little bit. Did you just meet this guy at a Juan Valdez coffee shop in Medellin that you're now partnered with, or how did you get to know your partner?
No, I was actually looking for some real estate investment opportunities there when I was on the vacation that I mentioned, and just kind of similar network. We talked about this before the show, but you get an expat community that develops down there, and one person mentions one person's experience to another. It was just kind of through a mutual
Mhm.
introduction.
Beautiful. So you meet the friend, and did you just decide, hey, let's get into the coffee business together, or like what's that? What does that look like in the beginning?
In a way, it was very demand driven from the investors who were already looking at Colombia, or who had already made investments in Colombia. We
Mm,
had a group of primarily real estate investors. They had deployed into commercial real estate, Airbnb properties. You've seen Colombia and the rise in tourism and the opportunity there. And they were looking for something that kind of looked and felt like real estate, something they could wrap their head around, cash flow opportunity, hard assets, not a huge leap from real estate to, an AI venture, for example, where, it's sink or swim totally. They like seeing some hard assets backing the balance sheet. So we put our heads together and said, what's a business that folks like this that have this interest could wrap their heads around in a relatively easy way, and just all of that development over the years of the synonymous nature between coffee and Colombia check the boxes for us. So we started that thesis of, okay, we can consolidate assets, consolidate infrastructure, consolidate farms, and generate a return that beats a traditional cash flowing real estate opportunity. As we got into it more, we saw the lack of a ceiling on the upper side of the potential here, and we've gone even deeper versus making it just a cash flowing real estate project for all intents and purposes, and turned it more into an enterprise that we think has the potential to be a public company in the not too distant future.
that's amazing. So we saw where there was money needed somewhere to go. People needed one, and were looking for investment opportunities, something that was stable, hard assets, something that they could tangibly get their minds around. And that became the solution went off in your mind, like, hey, we could invest in these farms, we could invest in this type of business and the infrastructure, and get a bigger return, or have somewhere for it to go. So you gave money somewhere to go. That was the intentional outcome.
You said it better than I could.
I like it. I mean, when you go back to your definition of intentionality, right? Being clear, just getting clear on knowing what you want. One of the reasons this show exists is just to provide value to the industry and help people get clear around the idea of being a much more intentional leader. I mean, we think the people that are listening to this on a consistent basis at least have that in the back of their mind. They're getting clear on, like, what are some of the things that I get to do. One of the things that we've discovered over the course of time in doing this show is that within the grand scope of agriculture, at least in North America, that we need to reestablish our North Star, which is getting clear again on, like, why does agriculture exist? Why does what do we exist for? Is it just to get bigger, or is it to feed the world? Yes, it's to feed the world, but also like we're doing that, right? Uh, so for what reason do we exist, right? And so when we have a lack of clarity, then you tend to have kind of a little bit of a more tumultuous time in agriculture or in any business, and that's what we're experiencing in traditional ag in North America right now, and globally for that matter. So it's an interesting time to be looking at where can you create more value, and clarity helps us get focused on the right things to be able to create that value, which is what you guys are doing. So
Absolutely.
very interesting. So, man, if we wanted to go dive in and learn more about you guys or look at the story, do we have a website? Do we have social media? What's that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. We have the website, greencoffeecompany.com. I think
Hmm.
we do the most posting on YouTube and Instagram. If you want to get a visual of the farms and the operation, it's really quite beautiful. You can tell people kind of your experience in Colombia, and the visuals like sometimes are hard to believe. So I always welcome people to check out the business and see what we're doing. I think it's a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah. Is it too late to get in on the investing? Is that still open? Is there an IPO impending, or what's the situation there?
We're raising some additional capital right now. Really, we need financing to fulfill some of the inventory needs for these clients that we're bringing in the US. So we
Hmm.
just completed a round a couple months ago, raised about 10 million from our existing investors. I think we would take up to somewhere between 2 and 5 just to give us a little cushion to fill these purchase orders. For people who are interested, the easiest way is to contact me via LinkedIn. That's the where I'm most active. And if you just send me a message, I can pair you up with our investor relations team and they can share the investment materials. But yeah, that's the idea is, take the company public in the US. We're structured in the US. All the banking, legal, everything is done through a Delaware holding company. So, people hear Colombia and they get scared. Fear not, it's a US structured entity, and yeah, we're trying to make some good money for our investors, but also want people who love the industry and believe in the future of what we're doing.
Incredible. I love it, man. Well, this has been fascinating to learn about how this came to be, what you guys are doing down in Colombia. Is there anything I should have asked that I missed?
I don't think so. I don't
Yeah.
think so. We could go on for a while, right?
I'm
But
sure. I'm sure. Yeah, there's lots to do, lots to learn about it, man. Well, thank you for sharing the story, and I'm excited about what Green Coffee Company is looking to do, and where you guys are going, and how you're integrating with some of those rural communities in Colombia and helping those community farmers out. The Juan Valdez thing, really, really fascinating, because I think you're right. I am in the over 40 crowd, so that target demographic certainly understands, and now we can buy it at the grocery store. I'm going to get some and put it into my grinder.
perfect. I appreciate it, Mark.
Yeah, Adam, thanks for being on.
Thank you very much.